Books make you hope. Books make you dream. Books make you laugh. Books make you scream. This is the Books That Make You show, discussing books with authors and experts, unraveling the inner pages of all the books that help make us who we are. Hosted by Desiree Duffy.
Hey everyone, I am Desiree Duffy and I am your host of the Books That Make You show. And today we're talking about books that make you think about honor killings and some of the issues surrounding ethnicity and sexism, religion, spirituality, especially in these tumultuous times. Now, it never ceases to amaze me how fiction tends to mirror real life, and that's the case in point. This is a fictional book, Dishonor Thy Father. It's inspired, though, by the real issues of honor killings, and it's set in the throes of racial protests in Los Angeles. Hello, does that sound familiar at all? Today's world is complex. And when we think about culture and the differences in our religions and things like honor killings and how that affects us, well, there's just a lot to unwrap there, isn't it? And what I like about this book is it wraps it all up into a heart-pounding mystery thriller. And oh my God, the pages are just going to be flying when you read this book. And I have with me today, not one, not even two, but as you can see, I've got three authors with me today. So let me kind of explain how this works. We have the writing team of Marilyn J. and Richard Rossner, and they write under the alias of MJ Richards. See how they kind of combine their names together. And they've written the screenplay for this. And then they teamed up with literary editor and novelist Mike Robinson to help bring this to life as a novel. Now, a little bit about Mike. He's also the author of The Enigma of Twilight Falls, The Prince of Earth, Skunk Ape Semester, and The Atheist. Marylin wrote for TV on Murphy Brown, Fame, Friday the 13th, the series. She's also on staff for Carol and Company, starring Carol Burnett. And she's also authored many books. You might remember her from How to Live Like a Millionaire, When You're a Million Short, because we've had Marilyn on the show before. We've also had Mike on the show before, too. I shouldn't forget that. And then Richard was on the writing staff of Full House. He was also wrote on the historic Live 8 concert. He hosts several different international podcasts himself. And he and his wife run workshops, The Power of Play for Cancer Patients. Woo! I introduced all three of you. I think I did okay. Hi, guys. How you doing?
Hi. Yeah, you did a great job.
Good.
Great to see you, Desiree.
Wonderful to see you again, Marilyn. Thanks for being here. Mike and Richard, nice to meet you too. You're the new face to the crowd.
I'm the newbie. Great to meet you.
Yeah, thank you, Desiree.
You bet.
Good to be back.
And let's start with the big question. I think everybody knows kind of what honor killings are, but who wants to explain in a little bit more detail what is an honor killing and what's that all about?
I'll take that one. In certain fundamentalist Islamic communities, modesty of a woman is a very high value. So if a young girl or a wife is in public and does some behavior that is immodest, whether it be in dress, holding hands, a public kiss, that actually brings shame to the family name. And the only way to reclaim the honor of the family is for the father or husband to kill the offender, to kill the daughter or the wife.
Effectively cleansing the stain, as it were. Yeah.
My inner feminist is just like, I'm riling at this. It just seems such such an odd way to effectively fix anything. So please go on. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, it's just hearing that, and certainly to Western sensibilities, it makes no sense. This whole project began after reading an article about an honor killing that took place. And when I heard about honor killings, well, okay, you would expect it in foreign cities, in the Middle East, in other, Islamic countries. But I read a story about an honor killing in Florida, and that shocked me. So these things are happening everywhere. In fact, there are 5,000 every year, as the UN suggests, is happening. And this is not okay.
Wow, wow. And one of the themes of the book, I mean, what you're doing is you're mixing in, you have a lot of topics that are weaving themselves together. Obviously, the honor killings and the sexism and the culture and religion as well, because there's a certain part of us, right, that want to be respectful of other cultures and their beliefs and their religions. But you're right, our Western sensibilities are just like, oh my God, how can you do this, right?
And what we wanted to do in this book as well is show different sides of the issues and of the cultures. Not everyone in a culture believes the same thing or is driven by the same motivations. So we have many characters of different cultures and different faiths. And even when they're of the same culture, they don't always behave the same. And that's what we wanted to show, that there's a plethora of reactions, motivations, and inspirations from all kinds of people, even when they're from the same culture and certainly when they're from different cultures.
Yeah, yeah. So how about if you set the stage a little bit specifically for Dishonor Thy Father and tell us the story? It starts out with a 15-year-old girl, is that right?
Yeah, it starts out with a 15-year-old girl in Iran, and she's holding hands with a boy. And later, when she comes home and goes to sleep, we find out that her family has somehow found out about this, and her father actually attacks her and tries to kill her. And she does get away, and that begins the journey of the book. Mike, do you want to add to that?
No, I mean, that's a good scene setting right there. Yeah, it begins in Iran and then makes its way over to America, and the story flowers on from there.
Yes, and we set the stage in Iran, and then we go to 20 years later in a hospital in Los Angeles where we have two very strong female surgeons, and they're operating. And one of them is a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, beautiful physician, and the other one is a beautiful Mideastern physician. And then what happens is one of them goes home and one of them ends up being killed. And from there, we go into the detective story of who killed her, why, how, and everything that a detective would be investigating. And the book actually goes back and forth to show how the whole thing developed. And with the young girl, she had to travel and what happened in her life. And then we go backwards from who was killed and what is happening now with the detective and the doctor that he gets involved in an affair with.
At its core, this is a mystery thriller detective. So people who like that type of genre are really going to appreciate this book. All the research, I'm just curious because you're starting in Iran and then you're in the United States and you're spanning time. What kind of research went into this book?
Well, some of it was, first of all, just understanding the culture and understanding what honor killings were all about. And there was a lot of research that was done online just to get familiar with the kinds of stories that were showing up in the news about this, to understand what the mental set was that would allow this to happen. Of course, we live in Los Angeles, so we certainly understand how things work in Los Angeles, and a lot of the strife and the way people are bumping up against one another. But Mike, anything that you'd like to add to that?
Well, I would say it's just a lot of reading, a lot of, it sounds flimsy, but, a lot of kind of imaginative projection based on many, many articles, books we've read, interviews we've seen with women who have either, escaped the blade of an honor killing or are intimately familiar with that culture, speaking out against it. So it's, and as Richard said, it's set largely in Los Angeles. And so that provided kind of an interesting multicultural backdrop. And in the story, this is obviously the honor killing thread is the largest thread, but it's woven throughout many other, B plots and other incidents that sort of highlight the stew of cultures in LA, and how that might inform the investigation and inform the contemporary take on such a phenomenon. So that was kind of interesting to play with as well.
And also then we have the romantic relationship that evolves between the detective and the doctor, which is, both sensual and sexual, and also scary because we don't know what's going to happen, and they both end up in jeopardy as well. We likened it when we first started, as you mentioned, Richard and I started it as an idea for a film, and I loved the films Sea of Love and Basic Instinct because they had that heat and that dynamic between the two stars, and that's the kind of dynamic that we saw between our leads, Tara and Mike Tucci, who's the investigator. So it's not only filled with multicultural things, but it also has a tension in terms of the sexuality and the sensuality of the leading characters. And then there are lots of subplots as well, which makes it very intriguing.
Part of the joy of writing is you do get to learn things. In preparation for this, I got to interview a detective and find out what his life was like and ask some of the questions that we would have some reality to how this whole thing was rolling out from a detective's point of view.
And the same thing with the characters. We took interesting tidbits of people's lives who we knew, and we mixed them in, and so that these characters would be real people with real lives and idiosyncrasies and behaviors that are not just made up, but that were people that we knew. So there's one story in it about the detective who has a little brother, and the detective is Italian. And then when we meet his little brother, we're shocked to see it's a black boy. And actually, he's not a boy, he's a man, young black man. But he became a big brother to him because of a particular reason. But again, we were mixing in a lot of cultural differences and showing the melding of how the world works today with blended families and all kinds of things like that.
It's been gratifying to hear some of the response that people have had to the book and to the characters, that they really are three-dimensional, that there were surprises all along the way, and that they really appreciated how full and rich the whole story and the characters are.
That is one of the wonderful things about Los Angeles, right? Is we have this blend, this glorious blend of cultures. And sometimes it's almost like we take it for granted, because if you do travel and sometimes you go to another country or another location, they might not quite look at it that way. And to that point, have you had, or are you maybe worried or thinking about what might happen if there are certain people, cultures, different, entities that might read this and take offense? Has that come up at all?
It hasn't shown up yet, but I will say this. I think this book gives a very fair reading. It's not a whitewash. It's not looking to take, a super hypercritical perspective and just flatly paint it all in one color. I think that one of the nice things about this is just how we've really explored the various perspectives that exist within a variety of communities.
Plus, we have gotten some reviews and also some testimonials from people of different faiths and who have really praised it. And from one activist who is a Muslim woman, and she really enjoyed it and thought maybe it could help bring awareness to the issue of honor killings. And another woman who's a big activist against honor killings also has given us a testimonial. So we're very pleased to be able to have that reaction to it.
One of the things that we more or less subtly touch on, or one of the conflicts, I should say, is that of moderate Muslims and, against the fundamentalists or the secular Muslims. And, their, I wouldn't say war or anything, but, the fact that they are trying to wrest control of the narrative of Islam from the fundamentalists, which is, key. and not even all the fundamentalists participate in honor killings necessarily, but it is pretty much resigned to the halls of fundamentalist Islam.
And that's important that we did it that way. And I'm particularly proud of the book because it does do it that way.
And we also have in it another detective who is also a Muslim. And so we have his character, and he's much more Americanized than, for instance, the people that we meet at first when we're in Iran.
Yeah. Well, and I can see too that you've got that overarching message that you're getting out there. And Marilyn, you had touched on that a little bit about, the women that responded to it. What do you, and what do each of you, what core message do you feel is getting out there that you personally identify with?
Well, for me, I have to say, as a longtime writer, both of film and books and theater, to me, I love telling a good story. And although this is based on something that is real and that we were shocked by, which is why we decided to write it, to me, it's about the storytelling. It's a story that has twists and turns and surprises. And I'm just really behind telling a great story and having people go on the ride with us. That's my thing as a storyteller.
My perspective is, and I've been involved with various causes for a long time. And when I first read the article, I said, "Oh, Marilyn, we have to get the rights to this story." And she said, "You know what? Let's do a fictional story. Then we can go wherever we want to with it." And I thought, that makes a lot of sense because from my point of view, I want to raise the issue as something that people should be discussing. A lot of people, when I talk to them about this book, they don't know what honor killings are. And when they hear, they are shocked. So if this can, as an entertainment, get people aware of and start talking about this thing, then maybe we can begin to see some change start to happen.
I think it does a pretty good job of portraying a world in transition, that are increasingly globalized, multicultural world, and the pitfalls and benefits and the things that are illuminated, like our commonalities in faith or culture or whatever, as well as our differences. So I think it does a good job in portraying that, and I'm happy about the way it does.
Let's talk a little bit about bringing each of you together and that writing process. Marilyn and Richard, I mean, you kind of started as the core team and created your pseudonym. Can you talk about how you worked together as a team, and then how and when and how Mike came into the picture?
Sure. I've written things alone and I've written things with partners, and Richard is a great partner. We wrote another movie together, which was very different. It was a comedy called How to Beat a Bully, which is out now. It's a movie, but Richard heard about the story and came to me, and I said, this is a great story, but let's fictionalize it. And in writing a screenplay, it's interesting because we like to break the story first. So we would break the story and, come up with a seed of the idea, which we had. And then we talk back and forth about how it could take place. What could we do? And of course, in this time, we also come up with the characters. Who is the most important character? It's interesting because in the screenplay version of this, we started with the murder and then went back. But in the novel, because you wanted to develop it, you can take the time in a novel to develop things slower. In a movie, you've got to hit them right away and then have it take off. But in a novel, you can get to know who you're working with and the environment and the character. So you have a lot more time. So when we were first developing the feature idea, we came up with the story ideas in the scene, and we just basically pop back and forth to break the story together. And so that's how that started. Richard, do you want to add to that?
Sure. Well, when at one point, because we had this for a while and we were busy with a lot of different things. And at one point, Marilyn said, why don't we turn this into a novel? Because then it could be out there right now. We don't have to worry about a studio or producers or whatever. We can just get it out there. I said, that's a great idea. know any novelists? So Marilyn connected with Mike, and I'm not quite sure exactly how that connection took place, but I'm delighted that it did.
Well, it was. I will say it was fairly random because I'm on the mailing list for IWASC, that writers group of Southern California. Independent Writers Group of Southern. Yeah. Mouthful of an acronym. But no, she had responded. There was some post that someone put up or some email that someone sent out, and she had responded. It's something to the effect of, "What would be nice is if I could find, or we could find a novelist to novelize a screenplay." And I can't remember exactly why I was it, because there was no hints about what the book was about or what the screenplay was about.
Mike's just like, I'll do it.
Yeah. Well, I think, I was young and hungry at the time. And I think maybe Marilyn like mentioned she had an agent or something. So I started networking with her as well. Yeah. And I think this was 2010. So 10 years ago.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, it was quite a while ago. And and then we met at a diner, and she told me the basic story, and I thought it was really cool, and kind of in a Dennis Lehane, Michael Connolly fashion. And I also it was, I think, just on a pure kind of business end, I thought it would be, I mean, artistically it'd be interesting for me, but also professionally, I thought it would be a good thing to kind of vary up my wheelhouse a little bit, because I usually write weird paranormal, metaphysical, philosophical stuff, like Twilight Zone style things. And this would be this would be a story that has none of that, and it would be more for a greater general audience.
Yeah.
So what we would do after that is, we of course gave Mike our original outline and how we saw the story happening, and ultimately, he would write a chapter and send it to us, and we would work on it and talk about it, and then go to the next chapter or whatever until we had the finished novel. And of course, again, in the novel, many more things and subplots came up because there is time to do that in a novel. So we delved deeper each time than we would have been able to in the screenplay or in the film. So it just became even more rich and with a lot more subtext and new characters and stuff that weren't in the original conception of the film. But we're excited. And of course, we still want the film to be made. So more than ever.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times when you have a book like this, you just, like you said, you kind of flesh out all of that, everything behind it, and it can actually make it more attractive for somebody to pick it up. And I just think it's go ahead.
No, I was going to say, in the two leads, Mike Tucci and Tara White, the doctor, are like fabulous, fascinating people for good actors to play. So,
and any of the studio heads listening in your audience, we're ready to rock and roll.
Here I am. Yeah, I thought it was so interesting because Marilyn, I know Mike, and it's not like we don't travel in the same circles, but all of a sudden it's like, I'm on Facebook. What? They wrote a book together? How did that happen? So I was just like, what's going on here?
Oh, and here is the cover of the book. Yeah, Dishonor Thy Father. Yes. So
beautiful. So obviously it can be a film. Could it be a mini series too? I mean, there's so many streaming options right now where they're taking stuff and you get that delicious slow burn when you do that, right? If you got, eight episodes.
It would make a great series.
Yeah. Eight episodes.
And a lot of people have already said, I can't wait for the sequel.
Now, is that in the works?
We're talking about it.
Yeah.
We're talking about it.
I love that you're all on a totally different page there. That's awesome.
Right. Well, my ability to focus on multiple things has definitely been whittled down over the years. I don't know if it's something within me or just further distractions, but I used to be able to work on multiple projects at once, and now I need to focus.
And I'm the opposite. I have many projects, and And there are different stages. I mean, I have, as you know, I've written other books, and then I have, some movie scripts that are out and stuff. So I'm used to working on different projects at the same time. And they're all my babies. It's like having children. People say, well, which ones do you love the best? Well, you love them all. They're just all different. And they're like children growing up, so that's that's what my projects are.
If only we had a pandemic to keep us all locked down so we'd have some time to write. I don't know.
Right?
Be careful
exactly.
what you wish for there.
Really.
Right.
Oh, that's fabulous. Well, I kind of see Marilyn and Richard, you're like the parents, and you have these children, this project, right? And then at a certain point, you're like, hey, Mike, you want to come over here and date our daughter? We'll let you kind of in on this.
Right. Yeah. And a lot of the other things that Richard and I have done are comedic rather than being drama or thriller. Although I also wrote 3 episodes of Friday the 13th, the series, which was really fun to write. And I think because thrillers and mysteries have an edge, that there is some similarity to comedy, which also has an edge, but it goes for the tough laugh. Although I really believe that if you're writing any kind of drama, it should be punctuated with humor, and any kind of comedy needs to be punctuated and have drama in it. So, so they all have their place. But I love writing both comedies and also thrillers or mysteries. Those are my 2 favorite genres.
Yeah. So why don't we'll start with you, Marilyn. I'll let each of you just talk a little bit about the other stuff you've got going on. Marilyn's mentioned many of her other books and projects, and give out your website, social media, ways that people can find you and find out more about you.
Oh, okay. Well, my book, one of my recent books is How to Live Like a Millionaire When You're a Million Short. And actually during the pandemic, I'm telling people how to live like a millionaire when you're a million short, when you're stuck at home. And then my first book that I wrote was Never Kiss a Frog, A Girl's Guide to Creatures from the Dating Swamp. And then Richard and I have a movie that we co-wrote, and I also produced it, called How to Beat a Bully. And that's a Home Alone kind of comedy, but with an anti-bullying theme. And people can find that on Amazon or iTunes or Vudu or on DVD. And then I have some other feature projects that are out and some other new books that I'm working on. And Richard and I also just wrote a romantic comedy called Cold Feet, which is supposed to start shooting hopefully in South Africa, either at the end of this year or next year. So that's a few of the things. And people can reach me. I'm on Facebook, and they can find me at howtolivelikeamillionaire.com, or they can go to dishonorthyfather.com, or they can go to Facebook with either of those, How to Live Like a Millionaire or Dishonor Thy Father, and find me that way.
Excellent. Yeah, Marilyn, you've got so much going on. I remember our conversation. People can go back and listen to our other show where we talked about how to live like a millionaire. That was a great conversation too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Fun. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard, how about you?
Well, I do a lot of things as well. The thing I'm mostly doing right now, I am a narrator for several podcasts on Spotify. The most fun that people, I think, would find are Unexplained Mysteries, where we look at unexplained mysteries throughout the world, and Dictators, very, very interesting show about dictators throughout history. But the other thing that I do that my heart is really, really into is the work that I do with my wife. We have a company called The Power of Play. And The Power of Play is, we were Original Groundlings, which is an improvisational company in Los Angeles. And we have taken improvisation, kind of turned it around. We work with non-actors to help them get through whatever kinds of challenges they have. So we help people to laugh more, play hard, and die less. And our specialty is working with cancer patients. We're on staff at the Simonton Cancer Center. My wife has actually been inspired by a lot of that work and become a Simonton cancer therapist. But you can find us at thepowerofplayforhealth.com. I'm on Facebook as well. And I'll look forward to seeing and hearing from anybody who wants to find out about that kind of work.
Oh, that's fantastic, Richard. Bravo to you and your wife both. That sounds
Thank you.
amazing. Yeah. Mike, how about you?
I've had a few re-releases come out. So my dark fantasy trilogy, The Enigma of Twilight Falls, is seeing a re-release over the next few months. The first one, The Green-Eyed Monster, came out in September. It's kind of a horror mystery. And I had another re-release, a standalone re-release called The Prince of Earth, which is a kind of a psychological horror set in alternately in Los Angeles as well as the Scottish Highlands. And so that came out in, I believe, October, and that's also, along with Dishonor Thy Father, by the way, that's also going to be coming out as an audio book this year from Cherry Hill Audio. So that'll be fun.
Excellent.
And,
Yeah, and I think when you came on the show the first time, we were talking about your book, Dream Shores. So if
Yes.
people want to go back and check out that past episode, you can find just Mike and I talking about Dream Shores as well as some of the other books. I think that was about 3 years ago, maybe.
Yeah,
already.
that was probably a couple of years ago. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Time just flews by.
It does. It does. Mike, Marilyn, Richard, this has been wonderful. Thank you for joining us today on the show. I appreciate it.
Of
Thank
course.
you for having us. This is wonderful, Desiree.
It's been great. Really great to see you again.
Likewise. Hold up that book one more time so people can recognize it when they go shopping on Amazon or their favorite bookstore. That's Dishonor Thy Father. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today on the Books That Make You show. Again, my name is Desiree Duffy, and I'm your host. And you can find out more about us on our website. It's booksthatmakeyou.com. We're also on Facebook and Instagram, and of course on YouTube, where you can subscribe to our channel. Until next time, all of my bibliophiles, please enjoy all of the books that make you exactly who you are.
The executive producer for Books That Make You is Desiree Duffy. Produced and sound mastered by Phil Giangrande. Engineering by Dave Nabox. Social media and promotion by Bree Sweeter. For more, visit booksthatmakeyou.com.